My name is Marta, and in this Red Gamer Tech video I'm here with the latest from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. So what do I have for you? Well, we're going to kick things off with something from Nvidia, as we have a report as to exactly what's going on with the GTX 1180. Like, it's even called the 1180, which sadly we don't know for sure as to when it's going to be coming out as well. Then we're going to move over to a few bits from Intel, the first of which is a Intel Xeon Gold 6138P with integrated Area 10 FPGA being announced. Then we're going to move over to something that is both Camp AMD and Camp Nvidia, as analysts are unfortunately calling Etherium ASICs a quote non-starter, which can unfortunately have poor results for us gamers. Then we're going to finish things up with Sasquiana, who have upgraded their guidance on AMD's stocks. But as I said, we're going to kick things off with Nvidia. So, we have a report to kick things off on the Nvidia GTX 1180 from Tom's Hardware, who have managed to get some comments from industry sources about what exactly is going on with the successor to Pascal, which of course has had a long and healthy life, and we're all kind of tired of seeing it at this point. But according to the sources of Tom's Hardware, and of course I will link their article in the description below this video, the chips are going to be based on Turing rather than Volta. However, they have not announced a brand name again according to this source. Now, we don't know unfortunately whether or not it's going to be called the 1180 or the 2080. We are seeing conflicting rumours, one person says one thing, another says another. But in terms of pure logic as to what would make the most sense, I think the 1180 would be the most logical step, but of course that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the correct one. It's just what would make sense in terms of it being the next step up. But what about when it's actually going to be coming out, which is the main question? And again, according to these sources, we can expect a July release date for the Founders Edition cards, with third-party cards following in August or September, with laptop versions later on in that year. So basically what we're seeing is GPU and memory being delivered to partners around June the 15th, which would mean, again, Founders Edition in sometime in July. And we could see Quadro cards based on Turing being shown around at SIGGRAPH in August. For those of you wondering as to why it's going to be such a long gap in between the Founders Edition release and the release of third-party graphics cards, is because, well, they have to go through numerous validation steps, even for AMD cards. They've got the bill of materials release, engineering tests, design tests, working samples, all that sort of stuff, final BIOS, and then finally mass production shipping. And I've even skipped out a couple of steps there, but all in all, you're looking at a few months just to kind of actually get it out there, and that's assuming, obviously, they give it to Nvidia day one. And by that I mean as soon as they're allowed to give it to Nvidia, which obviously would mean the August release date that I just mentioned. And of course Nvidia has its own Greenlight program where Nvidia gives their partner a bunch of guidelines to follow, and obviously a partner submits a virtual customer design product to Nvidia and basically goes through all these steps to make sure that it adheres to Nvidia's standards. Now, I don't want to talk on the specs because everything's kind of wishy-washy, and we've yet to really hear any rumours that I would consider really worth too much. But if it is going to be out in July, and again it would make sense just from what we've just heard, and this kind of lines up with what we'd expect anyway, we would probably start to get some leaks quite soon. But of course, until then we can only speculate. It's going to be Volta, Geforce Volta instead of Turing, and obviously a lot of people are saying no, it's going to be Turing, so we still don't really know a whole lot about it. Obviously, the sources are saying that it's going to be based on Turing rather than Volta, but even then, we still don't know the brand name, and we only know a rough sort of vague release window of July. So things are still rather murky regarding the 1180, but at least we've managed to clear the waters a little bit. But let's move over to the first Intel piece for today regarding the Xeon Gold. So what do we have here? Well, basically what we have is that Intel have announced a Intel Xeon Gold 6138P with an integrated Area 10 FPGA, and they've also said that they have begun mass production of the Xeon Gold and have also started to ship the CPU out to suppliers, basically meaning that we're going to be seeing this out in the wild in the market quite soon. So what do we actually have in terms of the raw specifications? Well, as I already said, it comes with Area 10 GX 1150 FPGA and features I/O bandwidth of up to 160 Gbps per slot. So those of you wondering about the specs of the FPGA itself, it has a very low latency along with low cache coherent access due to an ultra-path interconnect bus that also has access to independent cache and shared memory. and also the UPI can seamlessly access the FPGA cache, memory, and a whole bit more as well. Now, according to an old slide, which I will be showing on screen, that this particular platform should be making use of a high-speed serial interface, or HSSI, for connectivity, and the slide also shows that the new processors have different power specs than, say, the Skylake SP, so you're not exactly going to be able to slot this into your current system, essentially. Now, Intel have further stated that the reference design has 3.2 times better throughput and half the latency compared to a CPU-only solution when running Open Virtual Switch Framework. Now, as well as announcing this, which obviously is a solid thing that is coming out soon, is going to be available on the market, they also said that they want to offer a FPGA solution, a discrete one to be more clear, with a faster high bandwidth coherent connection, although they didn't actually say what would actually be going on in terms of the interconnect here. But what they have in mind for these discrete FPGA solutions will be for them to support code migration from code developed on the Xeon plus FPGA system that was featured in this particular announcement, as well as Altera's Area 10 GX acceleration cards. Now, unfortunately, we don't know stuff like, say, the base frequency or the turbo frequency, although we do know that it can support up to 32 PCI lanes, 6 channels to DDR4, and 53 MB of embedded memory. But again, there are some details that we don't quite know. But I would imagine that we're going to hear things quite soon, given that it is already sampling and shipping to vendors, one of which is Fujitsu, who were one of the partners that Intel are planning on working with to build a system based around this particular processor. So all of this is thanks to the guys over at PC Watch, by the way, and of course there's going to be a link to their source article in the description below this video. But let's move on to our next topic, which is Ethereum ASICs. Now, of course, we have seen finally, after months of extremely inflated prices, the price of graphics card approaching MSRP and sometimes even below it in certain cases, which is just a huge relief because it has been crazy expensive to even think about getting a graphics card for quite some time. However, the Bitmain Ethereum ASIC, one of the key factors in lowering the GPU demand from cryptocurrency miners, is unfortunately being called a, quote, non-starter by analysts. And to be more specific, there is an analyst who works for Susquehanna and a fellow by the name of Christopher Rowland, who has basically said on, or shall we say corrected what he originally said on how the Ethereum ASIC will affect the market and graphics card demand. So as I said, originally the move was expected to disrupt the massive demand for graphics cards among Ethereum miners. However, the value of the Ethereum ASICs from Bitmain at least have been brought into question. And Roland said, quote, "The Ethereum ASIC we previewed from our Asia trip held 3 times performance improvements, but fresh price hikes have destroyed its value proposition. Initial specs for the $800 E3 rig offered 3 times improvement over premium GPUs. However, in the weeks following, Bitmain discreetly increased prices to $2,150, well, that's $2,150, cutting price performance by 2/3, a non-starter." So basically, if you are a miner in this particular case, this completely gets rid of one of the main reasons for not buying a gaming graphics card in order to do cryptocurrency mining. And apparently the largest mining outfits out there have been holding back on purchasing ASICs, on purchasing graphics cards, until ASICs arrived on the scene, and of course their price versus performance and how well they actually work in reality could obviously be realised. So all this is a little bit concerning, as it could mean that we could start to see graphics card demand spike once more. Of course, it isn't just ASICs that are deciding what's going on in the market and effect on GPU demand. Even without mining specific chips around, sales driven by crypto miners could continue to decrease due to further changes to Ethereum and just a generally weaker market. So it's not all doom and gloom, it's just a bit concerning, and obviously this is only comments from an analyst. This isn't something that's set in stone. You know, they haven't got their crystal ball out, they don't know exactly what's going to happen. But if this is the case, obviously the value proposition for miners is a lot less than it was, and we could see that demand for graphics cards spike once more, and unfortunately the prices start to increase. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen, of course, because it's been such a relief to finally see a graphics card around normal prices after months of them being crazily high. So fingers crossed they are incorrect on this one, but definitely tuck it away under your hat for sure. But speaking of Susquehanna, we have our final topic for today, which is regarding AMD. So basically what we have here is that they have updated their guidance on AMD stock, upgrading it from sell to a neutral rating, and due to this, we have seen the stock jump up about 3% for the day. And once again, we have Christopher Rolland on the case, who published a note to clients today saying, quote, "We believe Intel's delay will help to maintain and improve AMD's competitive for the next generation of EPYC and Ryzen products. For the first time in memory, AMD will compete at a similar process technology as Intel, a strong multi-year tailwind." Now, what he's referring to, of course, is the concerns around Intel and its continued struggles with 10nm, and of course we have seen a bunch of leaks regarding Cannon Lake, and the first chips are not looking brilliant to say the least, and considering how many times it's been delayed, it's not exactly great, and there are obviously concerns that Intel is still going to be on 10nm and AMD have moved on to 7nm. So this is just obviously updated guidance for their stocks, but it has had a real effect on AMD, and it is of course due to Intel's woes and AMD's success and what we're expecting from them in the future. Of course, this is just a prediction from Susquehanna, so we're going to have to wait and see as to what actually happens, of course. Again, once again, they haven't got their crystal ball around. That thing is always going missing, it tells you. But it is interesting to see them update their guidance shortly after the concerns have started to rise regarding 10nm once again to the surface. But that is me done for this video. Thank you very much for your support. It is highly appreciated. Do remember to give us a like and subscribe, as well as click that bell icon on the page if you'd be so kind. And I'll see you next time.